Winter solstice isn't just about it being the longest night of the year or gritting our teeth to get that light back and push back through into spring and summer. It's nature's way of reminding us that actually winter and its themes of deep rest and hibernation, of the fact that death and letting go is a crucial part of life. All of these themes are a part of the life cycle, and winter solstice reminds us that actually we too need these themes and need to be honoring them in order for us to thrive. Because right now, if we look all around outside at nature, we will see winter in its full death and hibernation mode. We'll see those bare trees. We'll see the leaves on the ground, the going back into compost, that death part of the cycle. We'll also see that maybe animals have gone into hibernation. Everything just feels a little bit more still. And it's really important for us to have these nature reminders because in our modern life as humans, we've disconnected from the seasons that we used to flow through and honor a lot more closely. We humans in our modern life can get stuck in what I feel is just a perpetual summer mode of doing, of propelling forwards, of always on to the next without actually honoring the rest that we need, as well as that let go, that release, and the death part that needs to be honored in order for us to thrive. So welcome back to Death on the Daily. In this space, all of the ways that death and grief show up for us in life are welcome here, including in us honoring nature's wisdom and what it can teach us about how to live this life well. And before we begin, I just want to make mention that if this episode speaks to you, if you receive something from it, I would be so grateful if you could hit that subscribe button. It really, really helps me in my mission to get my word out there about my podcast. So today we're talking about winter solstice. This is a turning point in the annual calendar that has been marked by so many ancient cultures, ancient traditions over the years. It's a time that is just rich and overflowing in its symbolism, in its spiritual connection. If you hold any spiritual beliefs, and if you don't, I believe that we can connect into nature as our spirituality. And actually, nature is a major part of my spirituality. And the symbolism that winter solstice brings is of that longest night of the year, the darkness that has drawn in. It's of deep rest. It's of stillness. But also winter solstice and the winter season in general is very symbolic of death, of grief, of that letting go, of how essential death and grief is in whether it's our own personal transformation or the transformation and rebirth that happens in the world. Because if we look out to nature, we see that actually it's essential for, at some point, all of us to gracefully let go of our bodies, to let ourselves go back into compost in order for that rebirth for the next generations to come through. But also that definitely applies to our own personal growth and development. In our own personal transformation, there has to be a let go of ourselves, of aspects that no longer serve us, of aspects that we need to let go to clear that space in order for that growth into whether it's a new aspect of our identity or a new area of us as a human being where we're feeling inspired to grow. So if you've been craving maybe a pause, maybe a reset for rest, maybe a moment to honor you in all of your letting goes of this year and where you're at right now, maybe to honor you in your grief, then this episode is a snuggly, cozy one for you. So let's break it down. What does the winter solstice mean? In its simplest terms, the winter solstice is the shortest day and the longest night of the year. It's the moment where the earth tilts on the farthest axis away from the sun. So that's why the winter solstice brings us the least sunlight, the most darkness. But also it's important to note that the winter solstice is a moment when the light returns, because the day after the winter solstice, the day after that longest night, then slowly that sunlight comes in minute by minute into each of our days all the way through until we flow through to the summer solstice when we have the longest day and the shortest night. So on the day of the winter solstice, it's a beautiful day for us to just have a natural pause and really honor the hope, the light returning, and perhaps also the themes of that which we are hopeful for in our future, that light which we can see coming into our life. And this can be really powerful, I found, and particularly the past couple of years that have been incredibly, incredibly raw at this Christmas, winter solstice period in my grief for my daughter. Because actually on these very long nights and when there's less sunlight and when we're feeling really, really griefy, we can really, really feel it. So actually when I felt in my weeds of grief, I've really connected into nature's message that actually that light is returning, that there is that hope in my future, in my forwards path with grief as a part of me. As I've connected in and realized actually that sunlight is returning, I've also connected into aspects of my life that maybe have felt out of balance, out of whack, where I haven't felt myself, knowing and believing that actually that light is returning. I just need to, a bit like nature, give it that space and give it that grace for it to return. So why is the solstice so special and has it been so celebrated by humanity for millennia, probably? The reason for this is that actually the solstice, whether it's the winter solstice, whether it's the summer solstice, as well as the spring and the autumn equinoxes, they represent these thresholds, these transitions between the seasons. And obviously for us as humans in the past, when we really did live off the land and we were very much governed by what was going on in nature outside by way of what activity we were doing, the harvest we were bringing in, what a threshold represents is both an ending as well as a beginning. And that's where I find it really interesting on particularly the winter solstice, with that theme of death and grief and that letting go, and doing that in that theme of in the shadows, in the darkness. Actually, we can go within, we can really understand what is my grief, what am I letting go of, what deaths have happened in my life, both obviously of people, maybe pets as well, who I love dearly, but also of aspects of myself or parts of my life or relationships or other things, as well as then looking forwards and saying, actually, from this all going into compost, there is that new beginning. What am I also looking forwards to? What am I calling in? What hope, what joy, what meaning am I going to be calling in as the beautiful sunlight returns to the day? And for our ancestors, what the solstice also brought was a call to rest. This was the time of year where you snuggled down, you probably got around the fire together under, some sort of blanket. You got your maximum rest because obviously the sun was setting much earlier. And we were very much governed by that, by way of, okay, I'm going to go based on when the sun sets here, probably going to bed at about 4 p.m. UK time. But that was really powerful because we are cyclical beings, and actually getting that deep rest in winter, I'm sure, really did boost and propel them when it came to the spring and the summer. Those longer days tending to the earth, those times where we needed to be all in the fields for the harvest and gathering all of that abundance. Without that winter rest period, we might not have been able to sustain that activity throughout the year. And this is really where I believe that we go wrong as humanity, because actually we don't just live on a 24-hour cycle. We are complex human beings, and we do need to honor our need to rest and honor our need for that hibernation. But what I found is that tension point at this time of year is obviously at this Christmas period, New Year's, parties, all of that actually we go into super social mode at a time where, in truth, if I connect into my body when I used to be a party animal and going out and all of those things, I would be doing it in winter feeling absolutely exhausted versus in summer where I could definitely sustain it more. So the winter solstice gives us that invitation to slow down, to get that rest, to listen to our bodies, to understand what is my inner battery saying, how fully charged is my inner battery. And if it's not much charged, then actually with these longer nights, can I just get a bit snuggly and cozy and wrap up and go to bed early? And for those of us who are spiritual, there are many, many spiritual meanings of the winter solstice. And I would say, based upon your beliefs and your traditions and your culture, to flow wherever feels right for you. But for me, what the winter solstice really represents is that descent into what's called the void, into that darkness, that liminal space that is also essential for us to polish those seeds of our intention, to birth our very best ideas. Actually, if we are in perpetual go, go, go mode, we won't have that flowing through because we're not allowing ourselves that space in being. to just be is as essential as in the doing in this journey forwards in our life and all that we create. So I love this time in winter solstice to just light a candle, to grab my journal, to do lots and lots of meditation, to really, really honor myself and just the beauty that comes in these longer nights and the stillness that they invite. But also in my spiritual meaning for winter solstice, I really connect into that letting go, that death part of the cycle that is essential for our rebirth. And if you look to the many traditions and religions of the world, that rebirth part is basically catalyzed through that death, through that composting. And I really see the winter solstice with its themes of death as a really powerful portal for us, a portal that we can step through into a sacred space of reflection, of honoring ourselves. And if we're grieving, of honoring our grief and holding that close to our heart and understanding and knowing that our grief is a part of us. And when we listen to our grief, that again, in that space of allowing those inner voices to speak, we can connect and create a deeper understanding of ourselves to inform our forwards path. And I also love the winter in general for the theme of death and for the theme of connection to both our ancestors as well as anyone else who we love so much who has departed. For example, my daughter. And for me personally, this actually ignites with Halloween or Samhain at the end of October and beginning of November. Actually, I think when the veil is really thin there, I see it as a continuation, because at that point we are moving through autumn or fall and we're moving towards winter. So as I move towards winter with nature's seasons, I really watch out there for what's going on in nature and for how that can really connect me to death as a part of life and to my beloved ancestors and my daughter as an integral part of me. And you might be wondering at this point in the episode, I wonder why they call it solstice. The reason for this is actually it's based upon two Latin words, which basically means the sun standing still. It's a moment of both cosmic as well as I feel deeply integrated into each of us stillness. It's a moment where if the sun can stand still, so too can we. And so too can we go deep into our own inner world and our reflections. And actually, when we do this, when we allow space for these pauses, and I've found this, both of the solstices, I don't know if that's the plural, and the two equinoxes as really powerful moments each year to spend an afternoon just reflecting, journaling, really, really going within, to put my phone away, to not be scrolling on social media, and to give myself my own, I guess, mini personal retreat. So now let's dive into some journaling that you can do on this winter solstice or any time in the season. And to be honest, you can do it any time of year, because actually we humans, we have different seasons of life. So sometimes we might be in the middle of summer and feeling like personally we're in that winter mode, that time where actually there's a real release, there's a letting go, there's a surrender, there's a dying back. So it's okay for you to do this at any time of year. You can join me in getting cozy and just honoring yourself in this winter energy. The first journaling prompt is, what am I ready to let go or release? And this really honors that death energy, that letting go energy of winter. And this might be a belief, a pattern, a habit, a self-judgment, a relationship dynamic. Maybe it's that friend that actually you've realized, I don't really want to spend time with you. I feel like we've kind of grown apart. It could be a situation, be it your career, be it other things where you're prioritizing your time. But also these can be deeply personal to us. It can be an aspect of our own identity, maybe something that we've been holding on to that actually we know in our heart, even though it might feel tender and difficult, that we need to let it go. So go gently with this one if it brings up any tenderness, and know that in this process of letting go, you can just take very small steps towards it. Second up is, what rest do I need to prioritize in my life right now? This is a really important one for us humans, and particularly in modern day life, and particularly also actually acknowledging that, yes, okay, sometimes we might stay up a bit later than we should do, binge watching Stranger Things or whatever it is on Netflix, but also our jobs can be incredibly demanding. And for a lot of us, we're working really, really long hours. So there's a lot of spaces where we don't have a choice about perhaps how much rest we are able to get. And also honoring, really importantly as well, caregiving, whether that's for children or whether that's for our elders or other family members. But within rest, and I will link in this episode and in the show notes to an episode that I did about the 7 types of rest, actually, we can look a little bit more broadly. Rest doesn't have to just mean the sleep that we get. It could literally be a bit like, for example, I think many of us will have a grandparent who would just close their eyes and just rest their eyes at lunchtime, not necessarily taking a nap, just 5 minutes, just with their eyes closed, listening. Rest can also be restorative practices, like people who love, the mindful coloring in books, or a meditation or breath work, doing some gentle yoga and stretching, and remembering that we can get rest in micro moments each day. So it might just be, if you're in a busy life and thinking, where on earth am I going to start? That you think, okay, what's something that I can do in 2 minutes, 5 minutes each day? Can I pop my head out of the door outside into nature? Can I feel my feet on the earth just for a couple of minutes and take a few breaths? All of this adds up and it multiplies. Every single little micro moment of rest, it adds up. If you think about all those micro moments we might have got across a year. Third up, we've got what grief has surfaced in the past year that I need to honor. This is one that's obviously very close to me and my death on the daily mission, but also knowing who listens to this podcast and tunes in, I know that grief will be close to your heart too. So let's name it. And in naming it, we can honor it and we can witness it. And importantly, understanding as well that our grief obviously can and should include that of beloved humans who are no longer here. But also our grief can be many things. It can be our grief for our pets. It can be our grief for humans who we had really difficult relationships with. It can be our grief for any stage of baby loss, including what's called a chemical pregnancy, or our grief for babies who we longed for who haven't come in this year. It can be our grief for our career, perhaps if we've been through something really challenging like a redundancy. It can be our grief if we've moved home. And actually, in us moving home, we had to have a big let go of somewhere that for many years was our island of safety and meant so much. And in honoring your grief as well, just see and flow intuitively if there's anything that you want to do to honor your grief in this moment. A simple ritual can just be lighting a candle and just sitting with that, your words on a page and your grief just for a second. So fourth up, we've got what is quietly growing within me that I cannot see yet. And this honors that light that is returning, that hope for the future, that belief and that trust in the path and where we're going. Is there something that you're calling in the next year? Maybe it's in your personal development. Maybe it's a very specific intention or goal. Name that. And in naming it, also honor the fact that actually that seed is firmly planted within you. And that actually what we have is we have the ability to water that seed, to give it all of the, whether it's the fertilizer, the water, the sunlight, the nutrients so that it can bloom. But also in us watering and tending to these seeds of our intention, these seeds of our personal growth, we also need to really trust that process and to understand that even if we're sat here thinking, is this happening? Am I changing? Am I growing? That actually there is a process that is happening. If we show up with that intentionality and keep coming back and taking those steps forwards, come maybe the spring equinox, come the summer solstice, we will hopefully be looking around and saying, oh my goodness, look what has bloomed either within me or in my life. Fifth up, we've got what light do I want to welcome into my life as the days get longer again? And what this does is this gives us that invitation, that permission to prioritize our energy into places where we want it to flow. And for me, this one isn't about cramming more stuff in. If death teaches us anything, is that we get one life in this body, in this mind, in this being. So let's make this life worth it. So within this one, you might just want to journal on who and what do you want your energy to be prioritized towards? What is most important to you in life? And actually, you might also really connect into a way of being. Actually, it might be, I want more of my energy to be calm this year. That's definitely one I've been working on for the past few years. It's a really powerful one when we root into that intention and we slowly commit to making those lifestyle and mindset changes. It can really transform our life. Me and my nervous system definitely are testament to that. And so that final journal prompt really does give us that intentionality for that forwards path, which is really important in us honoring ourselves and this solstice and this pivot time of the year. So those are your winter solstice journaling prompts, and flow with them and make them your own. You might, once you've journaled on all those 5 prompts, look at them and say, actually, I can create a little bit of an action plan from here. Well, say action plan. It might be action and inaction and rest plan. It might be that actually you say, okay, what are a few key steps that I'm going to map out, that I'm going to prioritize today or tomorrow or this week? I will. So that completes this episode all about the winter solstice and some journaling practices that you can get cozy and can do. Remembering the invitation that the winter solstice brings of resting, of going within, of honoring ourselves, of honoring death and grief, however it's come up for us in this year, of trusting our own transformation, of trusting the light that is coming back in, of that inner growth, and of that promise of all of the hope and the joy that is to come next year. All my gratitude to you for spending this sacred time with me in this winter solstice energy. And if you love this episode, I would love it if you could hit that subscribe button, as well as wherever you're listening to it, if you wouldn't mind hitting the like button or hitting the rating, the review button, dependent on where you're tuning in from. All of that is a beautiful little solstice gift to me and to my Death on the Daily mission. And may this winter season, may this solstice energy bring you softness, bring you comfort, bring you care, and bring you trust in who you are becoming. And wherever you are on your journeys, know that I am always here. Death on the Daily is always here. There's loads of episodes that you can dive back into from the past that are evergreen and that have a wealth of care and comfort and support and inspiration and joy and hope for you. And know that wherever you are in your journey, I'm sending you lots and lots of love. Thank you for joining me on Death on the Daily. If you like this episode, it would mean a lot if you could hit subscribe. Plus, head to the show notes to find out about my work as a grief coach, and there's a grief journaling freebie there for you. Until we meet here next time, take good care of yourself and others.
There's a cold fire, there's a crossfire, and there's something